Well, welcome to the show, Darin Olien. Gosh, I feel like I've heard so much about you through Rory, and you're kind of like this mythical creature that Rory just raves about you. Yes, exactly. Is that your move? He loves you, and I have then since become a major fan of your podcast. And then so basically at the Cordial residence, we are like huge fans of everything you've created. So we've got Barukas in the cabinet. Rory has Shakeology every morning. We've got Barukas in the cabinet. We've got the podcast going. And then we have now we binge watch your Netflix show. I mean, you're really like a very big part of our family. And this is our first time meeting. So I'm thankful for all you've created, and I'm so excited to have this time with you.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. The point of creating things is that people benefit from them, and it's just if we didn't need money to survive and live, I just give all this stuff away anyway. So the fact that people are benefiting from this, and someone that I care about and love, and the extension of your family I love, I have loved from Rory, and yeah, I mean, there's a bromance for sure. I mean, that he's an incredible human, and it's rare that I meet someone like that of his caliber in terms of his groundedness in the world, but also his consciousness. And so I think we instantly connected because of that kind of inner work, call it, for lack of a better word, that sometimes in the maleness doesn't get expressed, and
Yes.
and so it kind of gets lost. And both him and I come from Montana, Minnesota, physical, blah blah blah, and we're very much still in that. But at the same time, I've been cultivating for a lifetime this balance of consciousness, care, empathy, compassion, and science of learning who I am. And I can see Rory in that space too. So yeah, from the outset, he was a brother for sure.
He is a very special guy indeed. I feel very lucky. And I actually, today in the show, I do want to talk about this inner work because, I mean, that's something that I'm so passionate about. And I know you talk, I mean, you talk superfoods all day. And I definitely want to touch on lifestyle stuff because I think it's really important. And some of the practical things, I have a couple questions, but I'm also fascinated by the inner work. We'll get to that in a minute. First, I'm just curious. You have this #1 show on Netflix that I just talked about, Down to Earth. Everybody should watch it. It's very cool. It's you and Zac traveling around the world, kind of exploring healthy, sustainable ways to live. How has your life changed? I can't even imagine how much exposure you've had from that. Has it been crazy?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, there are obviously people reaching out, and social media, and interviews, and requests, and companies reaching out. But the cool thing is that on the one hand, it hasn't changed anything, because it's just, if anything, it's just deepened my resolve. So, having just continued to be humbled by life, and cultivating like that resiliency that is needed in life, I believe, as a muscle of overcoming limitations, overcoming physical challenges, overcoming the 3D world in its it's relentless kind of showing us, projecting to us parts of us, or just straight up challenges, right? And so I think from all of the exposure and people kind of coming at me, it's kind of like, on the one hand, yes, come on, there's a mission here. So if it's hundreds of thousands, if it's millions, if it's hundreds of millions, like, yes, keep coming. Like, there is an openness that I have that is wonderful and receptive in that way, but it's not from like my ego, like, yeah, cool. Like it's never been, I need to do a show because I need to compensate for something that I'm, feel like I need to get attention. And the beautiful thing is, being nearly 50 at this point, which is just funny to even say, 50 years old. It's again, it's deepened, and I feel responsible for those people who are reaching out, for those people that have then saw something, felt something, connected to something that maybe they didn't have exposure to in the same way. And we got to them through our playfulness, through our levity, but also our very seriousness too. So for me, it's now, okay, cool, anchored in, anchoring deeper, and now pushing forward, taking more action to listen to what that audience is and what they are wanting. And so now I'm starting to develop other ways, other extensions of support, so that people can feel like, okay, I'm engaged in a healthier lifestyle. And that could be personally, that could be physically, that could be aware of things that they hadn't been aware of. So stepping away from certain activities that were harmful, and even by way of shopping, and supporting companies that don't give a shit about you, but more steering towards things that actually do, so that we can raise the awareness and raise the population of people that actually have the influence in this world. So for me, I'm like, cool, what's next? Cool, what else is possible? Cool, I'm ready. Cool, like, keep coming, people. Like, let's go. Let's really go. So from that perspective, it's just fueled me to like take the baton or take the sword and just keep ripping, so I'm fueled by that. And it's been a little exhausting just from the the constant having to respond and constantly meeting. But at the same time, I've been exposed to technologies and people and businesses and other warriors that are doing things that the world needs to know about, that I want to know about, that I want to bring some attention to. So zero complaints, like none, other than, it's time to go. And it's time
Yeah.
to move.
And I will say something that really comes across with you is how pure your intention seems to be. Like with all of your products and the things that you do, I really feel this energy of purely like a mission to serve people and the planet, and it's not ego driven, which is very rare to find. I mean, in our culture is so centered around the ego, and it's easy for all of us to get caught up in that. But I really do see all of the work. I'm sure it's a culmination of all of the work that you've done, and years of practice of healthy lifestyle and inner work and psychological work to get to where you are. But I really feel that in what you create.
Well, thank you. It's that the fact that is coming across is beautiful and wonderful, and it is where I'm coming from. And it's like, it makes some people crazy when I'm trying to develop something where I'm like, don't worry about the money right now. We need to figure out what's the best way to do something so that we can provide this service, and then we can back into how it sustains itself. So that's my first impulse ever. And I feel incredibly blessed to be connected to big entities like Beachbody, who was able to megaphone the product out there and market things, and I could just stay in my zone. And things like that have occurred in my life, and we all have the opportunity to go, okay, what is this driven by inside myself? And I think just over the time, through adversity and through challenges that life has thrown, I just go back to the space inside of myself, because that is the constant, and that is the truth, and that is the listening. The more I listen, the more it's clear. The more I act on it, the more it gets louder. and the clearer it gets. And the more I listen and the more challenges I go through, the more I go back to that. And it goes on and on and on. And so when things like the fire happens and destroys everything that I own, there is a muscle that I've been cultivating that I'm able to go back to, not the first time, but dig into a, you know, even though the grief is still real, the sadness is still real, the anger is still there. That's just a process of weather patterns of grief that have to happen, period. And so that's the human part of it, like to read a message and to, you know, cry because I'm touched by care and love, or to be angry that something so tragic happened. That's fine, right? And I think the judgment of those things is what traps us into those emotions and then pulls us down, as opposed to letting this weather of emotion out. And then once that clears, you can go, okay, cool, what is there for me to cultivate and to learn from and to grow from, because then it's infinitely more clear once those patterns of natural grief kind of roll through.
Did you like come over here and read my notes before the interview? Because I'm like, this is a little eerie because I feel like he knows exactly all the things I want to talk about. So I'm on to you over there, Daren.
Nice. Well, we're dialed in for sure.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about the fires for a second, because that's something I definitely wanted to talk about. So you completely lost your home in Malibu in 2018 to the Woolsey wildfire. I mean, I can't even fathom this. I know you talked about it a little, but overcoming obstacles and hardships and kind of how we deal with the difficult suffering in life, which is inevitable. Like we all know that there's no way around that. And dealing with it with grace and with, you know, a curious mind of how we can grow from it or learn from it or why it's here. That's a huge theme on this show. And I was really touched in Rory's podcast, you talked about this a little bit. But I was really touched just by your experience of how you almost had gratitude. You had like a moment of gratitude where it was like a shift. It was like morning, and then it was like a shift of like, what's next? And like almost an excitement. Can you tell me a little bit about this? Because I think it's such a beautiful story.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was.
And obviously tell us, sorry to interrupt you, but like, tell us a little bit about obviously that initial impact of feeling it, because I mean, that's real too. I don't want to skip over that because it's such what a horrific thing to have happened. And I'm so glad your dog is okay.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, the initial impact is the same impact that it's going to have for anybody. And it's literally like I got punched from something that was so beyond anything that I could even wrestle or grapple with. So you know, I call it a beyond moment, where there's really no place, even in your mind and your wildest imagination, you can really understand what that feels like until it actually happens. Mm-hmm. And when it actually happens, it is like a universal punch that is so powerfully devastating that it has no choice but to kind of reach directly into the soul and start pulling out something. But also in that process of reaching in there, it's just taking the closet and throwing everything out. And, you know, when we have attachments in this world, I do have parts of it that you're connected to. You're connected to pictures and projects and, you know, guitars given to you by your father and memorabilia and a ring that was passed down from 3 generations. And like, there's things that are literally energetic extensions of ourselves. And so you can't just say to someone like that, so this is just stuff. No, it isn't. It really isn't. And when you look at the quantum world, where literally everything is energy, then we have created these energetic extensions of ourselves. Whereas then you start realizing, oh, I'm all of this, but not going too far down that rabbit hole. But so it's not a good thing to say to anybody, it's just stuff, you're going to do fine. Like that's not compassionate.
Right.
You don't have to say anything. You can say, I'm so sorry for your loss, and then just be in the space, because most often what I found was it was their uncomfortableness with their even remote trying to understand what that's like. And it's so uncomfortable that you just want to just go, oh, you'll be great and rise from the ashes and all of this stuff. Now, all of that's fine to say. It's not, wrong. But when it happened, just stepping back to when it happened, I was away from it all. So on one respect, I'm seeing pictures, I'm hearing voice messages, and then finally getting a picture of my house. That was a very important part of it, because I literally remember ruminating. Like my neighbor, I think, was my first person that I called when I was literally getting off the boat from the Amazon, because I got hit with, 150, 200 messages, realizing something's wrong. And when I got on the phone with them, they were the closest to my house. So I wanted to know from the closest people to my house, what's the status? And they just said, sorry. And I was like, what do you mean, sorry? Like what? Like what's left? And and he said, sorry, it's all gone. I mean, what do you mean it's all gone? And so I just remember asking that, what do you mean? Like, what about this? I'm sorry. What about this? I'm sorry. What about this? And so that initial thing is so devastatingly intense, that there's no real way to handle that other than it happened and sit with it and allow it, and however you need to process it, with talking, with sitting, with it's just a shock. You're just in shock.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So then obviously the little bit of time started processing, and just get waves of just like incredible grief. And I think the thing that informed me about grief was when I lost my father about 16 years ago. And that intensity gifted me with something while it was happening, that was a voice inside of myself, because it was another beyond moment that I had no capacity. I had no capacity to deal with my father passing. So I felt, and there was a voice that came in and said, just let it all happen. Let all of the weather of emotion happen. And it was the greatest voice ever coming.
Had you heard a voice like that before?
Sure. I mean, you could say that voice has always been with you. It's that deeper voice, but this was loud and clear, as if you and I were talking, because I needed that assistance. I needed to understand that this person that was my first teacher and my father, and someone I looked up to in so many ways, and someone that we had an interesting connection even beyond a father-son, and him and I would talk about it. So there was a very, very deep connection there. And so that voice, that inner voice, my voice, that deep, deep, deep inside, just was like, let it happen. So when those waves would come, I would just let it happen on the plane coming back, and crying and not holding it back, and anger and like judgment. I could have done this, I could have done that. Just letting all of the emotion without chewing on everything. Because I think if you go into it and allow shame to come in there and then anchor it into your body and being, and not allow it to process and go through, now that intensity is just going to be locked inside of you at some point, from my point of view. So this thing that I had gone through with my father was something that came right to the front of the situation of losing my house. And I I went right back to the learning that I had gone through with that. And it was just like, let it happen and let it all happen. And so that grief and waves and sadness and shame and anger and fear and what the hell am I going to do now? All just came, and it kept coming. And
What
so
does that look like for you? Like releasing? I think sometimes it's easy. We don't want to feel these feelings. So it's like we distract ourselves or we try to go somewhere else. Or for you, is it journaling? Is it yelling? Is it hitting something with like a bat? You know, how do you just let those things come through you?
all of the above.
Yeah.
Like obviously not hurting myself or other people, but all of the above. I've had all of it. I've screamed at the top of my lungs when I got back to the property, on the property, just screaming and just pissed, and but also deep sadness and tears and journaling and processing and talking to trusted people that can hold that space, that don't feel like they need to give advice. I don't want advice. I don't need advice. I need space to be able to bounce things off of someone, to hear the wisdom that is within myself and within this universe. So for me, I don't want advice. There is no advice anyone can give. Now, if I'm hurting myself, now I would hope that one of my friends would come in and say, "Hey, Daren, you're going down a road that's not productive." But I think that the more I did that, and even it was happening quite powerfully, but I was still in shock in Iquitos in Peru, that I was starting to have the awareness like, well, I already knew that the destruction that we were looking at on the show, that anything could have been wiped out. Like just like that. Like Puerto Rico, for example. I saw them putting up infrastructure that was not resilient towards something could happen next week. It would wipe them out again. And so I'm sitting there going, we are all vulnerable. You know, this whatever you want to believe in climate change or not climate change, regardless, the earth is moving and changing, and intensity is happening, period. Fires and earthquakes and floods and hurricanes, you name it. So I was sitting there in the first part of filming going, wow, we're all vulnerable. Literally then shifting to the very last episode where I am literally vulnerable. And so for me, that awareness came in right away. And so all of that was on the show was very real, that, they gave me an out to leave, but I was like, this is the very reason at its core. And I haven't even explored the depths of that yet, but at least I know on the genesis of why I wanted a show to raise awareness about this is because of all of this stuff. Did I expect myself to be wiped out? Of course not. But what a great way for me to get so in touch with what the earth is doing than to have it wipe everything that I own away. And from that perspective, I am so freaking grateful, because I will come out of this. And I'm not out. I mean, I'm living in a yurt. I'm not living like, I'm still so much in the process of rebuilding. And the story of all of the adversity around that is just a whole nother 3 hours of craziness, of resolve, resiliency. The one event almost paled in comparison to the bureaucratic craziness that people have in the resistance of people recovering from this thing. So that alone is a fight that I'm willing to have in a way that no one sees. So, the county, the LA County, the the agencies that don't communicate, that put
Mm.
roadblocks in front of us to not have power and water and things like that, and resolve those things, is criminal. So that's a whole nother part of grief. But you're going to put that in front of me. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep going. And so the strength of taking care of myself for a lifetime, being healthy, being fit, that just resonates with my inner part of myself that tries to stay as healthy and fit as that as well. So working on myself is as equally powerful as working on this physical body that has to respond to things as well. So as a result of all of this stuff, realizing that the opportunity far outweighed the massive inconvenience for a little while, the opportunity was just infinitely and infinitely and infinitely greater, because it gave me a view into myself that was extremely deep, and the love that I had for myself grew exponentially. And the love that I have for my mission of helping people get healthy, helping the planet in whatever way, it just came so crystal clear that then everything that I do, and people saw that on the show even, they saw that glimpse of me, but that pales in comparison to who I am now. So the person that was able to come and still coming out of that is someone I'm really proud of and is ready. And so going all the way back to your first question, how is this affected and all the attention? I'm like, bring it on. Like that, I am ready. And I don't want to get into politics or all this crap of what's not being done. I just want a solution. And a lot of people do too. So that's what my life has crystallized in a way that it never would have crystallized in the great intensity that it did, in a powerful way inside myself, if all of this adversity didn't happen.
Man. Man, this is a journey. Gosh,
Oof.
it's so tragic and difficult, and at the same time I don't believe it was a coincidence that it happened to you and that it happened in this moment, like exactly like you said. And I find it so empowering that the way that you've been able to handle it, because it can be a lesson to us all, because we're all going to deal with adversity, and it's nice to be able to have a model of a different way of handling adversity than maybe some people have heard.
Sarah, it is a seductive thing. It's seductive to not do that. There is
Oh,
so many
yes.
things in our world today, our modern world, and so many, unfortunately, examples of ways to not empower yourself and to be a victim and to find an excuse. And also sometimes people don't even realize they're using it as an excuse, because it's so subtle, but then it anchors in there, and next thing you know, you're running around with, well, I'm doing this because of, well, this happened. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm obviously, if I ran around and said, oh my God, this happened to me, and I'm going to get through it. And, I could be saying that today, and everyone would kind of go, God, yeah, you've been through a lot.
Yeah, you
Just
deserve it. You're allowed to do that.
you deserve it. Take your time.
Mm-hmm.
You've lost everything. And I don't want to be in that conversation.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like let's find a way through this. Let's cultivate. It didn't happen to me. It happened for me. It didn't happen to me. It happened for me.
I
So
know. I
how did
love
it
that.
happen for me? So let me go inside and wipe away Daren and who I think I am, and go, if everything in this world is the universe expressing itself with no judgment, what is it trying to express?
Mm-hmm.
What is the opportunity? And so that awareness was popping in almost freakishly early, which I would kind of like, how am I, you said that before because it's true. I was like kind of sometimes like wickedly excited. And at the same time, and maybe the next day I was still grieving, right? So there
Mm-hmm.
was still grief and there was still pain that would have to come through. But on the other side, I'm like, oh my God, I have a vision that I didn't see
Mm-hmm.
before. And now I'm starting it popping in to my lucid awareness. And I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. I'm going to do that. And so, I jump in my men's group and I started telling these guys, and they were literally, you could talk to any of them, but all those people are confidential in terms of, because we keep but if you could ask them, they were all sitting in their chairs going, how are you even having this conversation? And I honestly, again, it was just, I think, a willingness to, you have to go through the grief. And I think the trick is people, we all do a really good job avoiding pain,
Mm-hmm.
rightly so. But if you have a nagging pain that you haven't dealt with and you haven't resolved and you're not doing it, it has nothing to do with the event that maybe started it. Now it has everything to do with you, that you're ripping off the scab of your pain, moving in every moment forward and forward. Some of the greatest lessons I learned was studying with these Toltec shamans. And these
Mm-hmm.
Toltec shamans were all about this process called recapitulation. Gaining and gathering and pulling the energy back of where you bled it. And that could be on a daily basis. If you even at the end of the day going, okay, let's just go inside and say, okay, how was my day today? How did I respond to that person? Yeah, I kind of gave them a zinger. I was having a little judgment of them. And in that process, you just kind of bled some of your energy. But you can go back and resolve, not to mention saying sorry to whomever, but that aside, you can recapitulate any time in your life where you may have not made a great choice and it caused pain to yourself or someone else, or an event that you didn't handle so well. So it's not to be in pain or shame. It's to go back and pull in that energy that was lost at that time.
Are you
So
just
that's,
visualizing it coming back? Is that it's just like more of a
yeah.
inner
Yeah, I
vision?
mean, you can easily say that, through hypnosis, that's a part of them trying to do and repair some of these things. But for me, it becomes a lucid experience
Mm.
sometimes. Like sometimes I'll be just walking around and all of a sudden I'll lucidly get this experience or this vision or something that I've gone through, and I will just go back and be my powerful self in that moment and then
Mm.
respond how I truly would have responded if I have all of my power intact.
Oh, I
And
love
so,
that.
yeah, it's really, really powerful. And I'm doing a bad job of really understanding, but if you go, Carlos Castaneda and Don Juan Matus and all of these books on the Toltecs, they're starting to, and Four Agreements, that's
Oh,
Toltec power right there. And it's all about gaining your energy back and gaining your energy so that your assemblage point, the who you are, has more fluidity. Because if you have pain and judgment and who and what you think you are gets locked in, and so yeah, you're very rigid. So for me, it's just constantly, without it being a mental process, it's just something that um, is a powerful thing. Because if you look at life, and this is a big topic, but if you look at life, what if there was no time? Right? So everything that you've done, said, been, not done, not said, not been, what if it was all existing right now? And that whole thing was a culmination of all of who you are right now in this moment. So where can you gain more energy? Where can you let go of certain things? And so that's kind of that thing. It's like, if there is no time or space, and it really is right now, well, then what can I do to heal what I have perceived as the past, and have had
Mm-hmm.
moments where I've hurt myself in thought, word, and deed, or another person. So it's just those kinds of things that over a lifetime, it's those kinds of moments. And I've had, we're in this kind of conversation, which is I'm grateful for, because in this last full moon, I just been calling for and feeling, and I've been having some lucid experiences of going back to some Native American ceremony that I did for a decade. So just getting back on the earth and doing some drumming and just feeling, I'm feeling something that I want to get back to, a little bit of connectedness that has something to show me. So
Yes.
again, it's like I when things like that come up for me, I can't turn them off anymore. I choose not to turn them off. So then I start making calls of sisters of mine, like incredible, powerful energy sisters of mine. Lauren Monroe is one of them, who I had on my podcast.
Yeah, I listened to that one.
Like she's just an incredible being, and another friend, Cynthia Brown. And so I've reached out to these women strength, and I said, listen, I need to find, because part of when I did some Native American stuff, I studied with Wallace Black Elk, from Black Elk, the descendant of Black Elk. I studied with Robert Cross in Colorado. And so these guys started popping into my head, and I'm like, oh, there's something going on. I need to get back, literally dig a pit maybe and just fill it full of mud and just sit in the earth for a little bit or something. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But
No, I love that, because I think kind of what you're speaking to is that we have this kind of this awareness, this intelligence that comes into our consciousness, and many times we aren't still enough or aware enough to even pick it up. It just kind of comes through and people miss it. And you've obviously done a lot of work to be able to kind of pick up, oh, what's this thing? What does it mean? What do I need to do? And can you tell me a little bit of some practices maybe that are things? I mean, obviously digging a pit and sitting in some mud is something you just mentioned, getting in touch with the earth. Like, how are you turning up the volume on this intelligence and this inner wisdom and these signs and signals that are coming into your consciousness?
I mean, the volume's turned up like already.
But
And if
how
you
did you
want to,
get to that point?
well, I think,
Or has it always been that way?
no, I think I was a regular kid, as clearly being empathic and being sensitive to certain things, but not anything. I don't have a story where I was seeing dead people at 3,
Right.
but I definitely started to see where I was a little different. And really it started happening in college, where I was like, I'd wake up. I found this time at 4 in the morning where I was so clear, and there was a space in the fabric that was so quiet. I could study. I wasn't really meditating, but I could just find that space and wake up and just cruise through any studying infinitely better than at 9 or 10 p.m. at night. So then that morning just became something that, what was that, in 1991, 92? Like I was like, oh my God, does anyone else know about this super early morning stuff? And there was a nectar there that I've never stopped, so from 3:30 to 4:30 in the morning, I'm up every day, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, I'm up. And I go into silence and space, and there's certain practices that are just breathing meditating, and we could talk for days on techniques, and then a type of conscious journaling. And that, to me, that's my direct communication. If there is a universe, if there is a God, if there is a fabric of intelligence that is beyond all of this stuff, if there is the
Do you believe
mystery.
there is?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt. It doesn't matter to me what you call it.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what you call that voice that you heard.
I mean, listen,
Do you call it anything?
I call it a lot of things, and they mean the same thing to me. I mean, God, universe, spirit, light, and then it has extensions of that. I mean, Wankantanka is the great spirit. Tankashala is the spirit that moves through the world. So it's similar to the Holy Spirit from a religious perspective. There's Hanuman from Radha and Krishna. So Hanuman's kind of the power monkey that moves through the universe. It's all the same. So I love, yeah. So I love all of those religions or ideas pointing to the same stuff. And so for me, I kind of go, if there is a direct connection, which there is from my point of view, and maybe you could say that's absolutely ego. I don't care. So I'm like, for me, I literally communicate in a stream of consciousness directly. I've done a lot of ceremonies. I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of different types of religious exploration. For me, now I just go straight. And even though I do love, and there's power in different religious access points for different things, I just go straight. I go, God, universe, creator, light, I'm talking to you right now, and we're talking. And that is a direct communication to that inner space of me that is the same fabric that is this universal consciousness. And yeah, I mean, that's what I have to, without fail, have to connect with on a daily basis.
So in your journal, is it, are you asking questions? Are you making requests? If you have something that you're not sure about, are you saying like, please give me guidance on this thing? I don't know which direction to go. Or today I need like more energy. I need love. I'm having a hard day. Like, is it just like whatever? It's just like whatever's in your head, you're just getting it from your head onto the paper.
All of that. And it may show up, for example, so like a stream of consciousness is just literally without the mind, letting the spirit flow. And some days it flows more than others. And some days I've got a ruminating thought of, some task that I've also aligned with a truth that I want to bring in the world. And then it quickly goes to that. And then there's a to-do list, but then there's a exploration. You know how many ideas I've had about helping people and helping this and doing this and cultivating that just sit there. And if they come back in and there's reason to take action, I do. But sometimes that mind steps in, and then I need to dump like that to-do list and put that over here. But that one space of kind of flowing consciousness, it's literally like stepping into that river and letting my fingers be the kind of the flow of the river. And then flowing with that, it always opens up. Number one, peace, gratitude. Right now, I'm actually doing 30 days of 30 things I'm grateful for every morning. And it's pretty amazing. Like, I've done gratitude for years, and I grab a couple things or one thing and just really sit with the gratitude of my dog, my land, my home, my yurt, and just sit with it. But 30 things, there's a point within the 30 that I just get waves, and I sometimes will tear up, and I will just get flooded with abundance. and grace and peace and zero lack. So, it's finding those things that nurture your soul. And I have to do that before I start my day, quote unquote. And then, yeah, there'll be times where maybe I'm inspired by something, and then I, go back into a ritual that I liked, or a technique that I liked, or a meditation that I like. But also through that, there is this time where it shifts into aligning with what I'm doing today. And so then it becomes very pragmatic. And then most people who are around me, from my assistant to people I'm working with, they'll get a slurry or a plethora of like, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, all before 6 a.m. And I'll start blasting people like, let's do this, follow up with that, and blah 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 blah. And so that will start flooding afterwards. Yeah.
That's great. So you mentioned a little bit before this men's group that you're in, which maybe you can tell us just what that is, but I'm interested to hear. It's really beautiful how it seems like you're able to be really vulnerable and share vulnerabilities just in this brief conversation. And I don't even know this to be true about you, but it seems that that's something that you're comfortable with. Is vulnerability, what has been your relationship with vulnerability? Is it something that you've always been very comfortable with? Is it something that you've had to work towards? Is it something you still are practicing? Because I think for men in particular, it can be more difficult.
I think I'm definitely still working at it. Like in the last few months, I'm like even today, I was like, Daren, be impeccable. I just was like, it just popped in my head. I'm just like, be impeccable. And so I was, around my friends. I'm like, hey, and yeah, you can give people a hard time in terms of poking fun with your friends, but then also always make sure of giving them something powerful and like complimenting them or whatever. But I forgot your question in all of that.
Vulnerability. So
Yeah.
I
So
was just saying, just like
yeah,
your ability to kind
yeah,
of be in
yeah.
connection with vulnerability.
Yeah, thank you. And that's vulnerable. So, it's it's kind of like, I have this concept of fatal conveniences. And I really believe that lack of vulnerability is a fatal convenience. It's very convenient not to give a compliment. If you see someone who's strong, beautiful, connected, truthful, demonstrating kindness, abundance, whatever it is, it's so convenient to not say something and say, hey, you know what? You look really good today, for example, right? And I think, and that's vulnerable, because you're having that, you're feeling that. And so many times we push that down. And I do that all the time, but I try to like step into that. And that's on a small scale, but large, right? And we don't understand the butterfly effect that has on people. If you're able to compliment someone and say, you know what, thank you so much. And there's also a point where there's a receptivity. You can give compliments and you can have people blow it back in your face who can't receive it. And I'm not saying they're nasty about it, but they don't receive it at all. And I think that is a fatal, fatal flaw in our human existence as of right now in the world. So we don't receive for shit, right? We don't receive when someone is kind, caring, and gives us compliments. We do that. Try it next time. A friend, give them just a straight up from your heart, look them in the eye, and give them a straight up compliment. And watch how they flutter. Watch how they'll deflect. Oh yeah, I love you too. Oh yeah, thank you. Well, this dress, this is just an old thing. It's deflection, 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 deflection.
Is it because they don't feel like they deserve it?
Of course. So it's always that. So there is this. It's nice to find people that you have a trust and a receptivity and a cauldron of caring, respect, tools that have been cultivated and trust. So yes, I like vulnerability, and I strive for it every day, and I'm trying to be better. But I know at my core that vulnerability is a superpower without any hesitation. And so when it comes to like something that I am completely fine being myself and showing people who I am. So I guess I have worked on vulnerability. So when you see, something like you hear on the podcast, you see it on the down to earth, like that's, when I have people that have known me for all my life from my small town going, that's exactly who that person is. Like, that's Daren. And so when I have that, I know that I've done something not to hold myself back. So I'm trying to be as vulnerable as I can, just being myself. And that is a practice. Or I think it's only a practice because we've been hurt along the way. So we have to kind of let go of our walls that we have put up throughout a lifetime to get back to that which I think we're inherently designed to be. But yet you have this reptilian side of you. If you truly get vulnerable to the wrong people, or that can be, I think you have to also read the room, or deliver it in a way that's authentic to you, but say it in a way that someone can receive it. And I think the willingness to perceive how someone can receive is also a superpower. For example, down to earth. If it would have been up to me, I guarantee you the show would have been too intense for the mass population. If it would have been exclusively what I wanted the show to originally be, it would have been too intense. Because I lived in this space, I wanted, and I just go for it. Let's go for it. If we're going to do it, let's do it. But it was the letting go of the production that fell in love with the concept, with Zac, who opened up this world, and everyone wanting to do it, but not coming from it. So having to let go of some of the agendas I had so that the message could be culminated and curated for people that were not like people that knew me or I run with. The show just really reached over the aisle and grabbed people in a different way because it was light. It was light enough. It was deep enough. It was educational enough, but it was fun enough to be able to communicate to those people, the biggest population of people that we actually need to communicate with. Instead of it was up to me, it would have been too intense and they would have just went whoop right over their head. So that's an example of vulnerabilities there. Zac and I were vulnerable. Zac was always being someone else as a character, and so he was vulnerable showing up. I was trying to be as vulnerable as I can, just being my crazy self. And then the whole production and the whole team curated, and I had to surrender my agenda so that, and trust the organism of the whole down to earth team, that is the message that's going to come across. And super glad I did.
I have a couple just practical questions for you. So I drink a ton of water. Water is, it's basically all that I drink besides the smoothie. So I definitely am consuming plenty of water. The issue we have is that we're using water that's filtered from our fridge. And I feel like that's just like making you cringe inside. Like I just hear you being like, no. So Rory and I both, this is a question from both of us. What are we what do we need to do to get a higher quality of water? And why is water so important for those who don't know?
Your fridge filter is definitely not adequate.
I know.
It just can't get out the fluorides, the chlorines, the pharmaceutical drugs, the nitrates, the phosphorus. They just can't get out everything. It's impossible. And that's the modern day flaw. Again, that's the fatal convenience. Convenient that you can flip on your tap because there's couple billion people in the world that don't have a tap, and they have to go and share water with cattle and put in a jerry can. So we have convenient, we can turn on this faucet. So that's a great human change that we've made. However, because of that modern day influence of chemicals and volatile compounds, we have to filter that out. So unless, and just the caveat here is, if you have a stream, if you have an aquifer that's been tested and not compromised by the environmental pollution, then that's your best choice. So if you have access to that kind of water, which most people don't, you have to purify that water. So you have to kind of strip it down and get out the compounds. So the best way to do that is reverse osmosis or distillation. Reverse osmosis, a few $100. You have a reverse osmosis. There's under the counter, there's on top. There's a company called AquaTrue. If we put in your show notes, we can get your people $150 off on that one, or even you. AquaTrue is a great scientifically tested reverse osmosis on the counter unit. Super good. But the important thing is to build back that water again, you have to start with adding electrolytes back in. And so an easy way to get the proper size electrolytes is unrefined salt or Himalayan crystal salt. Literally, we're just talking a pinch per glass or a half a teaspoon per gallon. So you're going to get that, and you need water to have those electrolytes in order for it to flow in and out of the cell, for your cells to actually get hydrated. But you don't want to be drinking that water just straight up on its own. So that's your easy fix. Okay. And then there's a rabbit hole of other things you can do to build back your water again. Using glass, of course. Cobalt blue glasses is really good because that light going through the blue is a good structuring technique. There's vortating techniques. There's other water mechanisms, electrolysis, hydrogenated water, oxygenated water. There's all kinds of things that you could healthfully manipulate. But just to get clean water with proper electrolytes, RO distillation is an easy way to go. Add a dash of Himalayan salt to it, and you're good to go. You'll notice a big difference in your hydration.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. I will say we do. Rory has like these 2 containers, and we'll write different messages on the containers of like energy that we're putting into it. So maybe that helps it a little bit.
100% it helps it. But there's a physical side of the water too.
Yes.
So there's those biological contaminants that have to be dealt with.
So we got to get those out.
But certainly extremely important to have the energy structure of the water, which is, a whole nother podcast.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. With food, we're also pretty good with food. Not at your level at all, but I believe that, food is medicine, and I believe that it's really important what we put into our body. That being said, I also really love melted cheese and pizza. So do you ever, I feel like you're so disciplined, and you ever splurge on anything? Like, are we in trouble if we have, that pizza, or if we have that indulgence? Like, what level can we splurge every once in a while? And do you ever?
Well, my splurging is different than your splurging, because I have set my habits already towards all these other things. And so plant-based cheeses, the ones that I have, Rich Roll's wife, Shrimu, I guarantee you, they'll blow away most of the cheeses that you could get from a regular dairy. So I get the same taste and connectedness with those kinds of things. So it's all, I get zero pleasure over things that don't help me feel good. Like they're locked in habits.
Has that just always been how you are? Like, is
no,
that?
No, it's always a journey, right? So if I look back at how I ate in college, I'm horrified, right? Or how I ate as a kid, I'm horrified. But it's just a continuous journey. And so listen, if you can eat a lot of diversity of plants, I mean, you know, cheeses and stuff like that, you know, this is certainly a rabbit hole, but casein is like that is an active compound in cheese, is like, you know, giving over a gasoline can to a forest fire for cancer. So it's like, you know, those kinds of things. I just like, once you know what you know, you're like, if I can go over here and get a plant-based thing and getting literally the taste and the texture and as delicious as all this other stuff, then I am indulging. I'm still indulging, but I don't have this fatal flaw on the one side. It's like, so I think cheese was also my last give up before I went vegan, you know, 16, 17 years ago. So, and it's also highly addictive. So casein protein is highly addictive in cheeses. So you're also combating that. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
combating the microbiome that is adapted to eating on and feeding on cheese. So you need to give yourself a little, but once you allow that shift, there's no debt, there's no debt anymore. Like there's no lack. That's the thing that people don't realize. There's no lack in my universe. I'm not running around at all with 0% of me feeling like I'm lacked in anything that I'm eating. If at anything, I point back at those people and say, you're lacking, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm eating some of the greatest food on the planet and enjoying it at a level 10 all the time.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, there's a lot of systems at play, and there's some time that it takes to shift into those. But, you know, like when I sit down, and most days after I've done my workout and I make a smoothie bowl with like mounds of fruit and tons of Shakeology and Barukas and like a Flintstone size fruit with 4 bananas and 6 dates and apple and peaches and plums all cut up, and uh, like, are you kidding me? Like that is so delicious. It blows me away that that's legal, you know? So it's like, that's nature's candy. So no, I don't feel at all that there's a lack. And I feel like that I'm binging, like in a great way. That's what I want to help people steer towards. And like, okay, you might have an addiction. That's fine. But once you get over that hump, which is on the grand scheme of things in your lifetime, it is literally nothing. It's zero time. And once you get over that and the little few days of inconvenience, you will get to that other side and reap pleomorphically the benefits of not only your health, but it will change your chemistry, your hormones. It will turn off degenerative disease markers and give you antioxidants, free radical scavengers, and structured water, and things that we don't even know of that are in this diversity of plant-based, you know, whole food. So that benefit is, you know, that's abundance.
I think an important thing that you said, just to note for people, is this concept of the microbiome, and how when we're so used to eating certain things, it is like an addiction, and it can feel really difficult to stop, and that there will be that transition when you're stopping to eat something, but it won't always be that way. I've
Sure.
experienced that with other things that I've stopped eating. But
Yeah.
and Barukas, on the flip side, are one of our favorite snacks over here. Everyone needs to get Barukas because they're so healthy. They are sustainable. I mean, like, the intention behind them is so beautiful and everything. I don't know if you want to say anything about Barukas, but I mean, I'm such a big fan, and I know your journey with it's been incredible. But
Well, Barukas just hit very quickly. Barukas just hit on every cylinder for me. It was, um, a wild food that comes from the Sahadu, the biome in south of the Amazon. That's a huge biome that's being destroyed faster than any landmass on the planet. So it became an environmental actionable item as well as a fair traded help from the indigenous people on a huge landmass. And then when it's tested, almost in every category, it blows every other nut away as this wild food, from micronutrients to complete proteins to antioxidants to fiber to lower in calories. Like it just was like, oh, this is everything I stand for. And when we lined up all the people running the business and the support that we can have, and our goal of planting 20 million trees, for every 5 pounds we sell, we plant a tree. And so we're starting to work with some great organizations that can mobilize and pull that off. That to me is how we need to move as a democratic world. We need to be responsible, and we need to do good, and we still can make money and make a profit. But I love profit-centered businesses in that way, because when customers reap the benefits of these extremely high nutrient dense nuts, and the taste is just mind-blowingly good, that is that entity now that is going back to supporting the biome, supporting the tree planting, and supporting the people. So that to me is like, yes, customers, enjoy the nuts, buy them like crazy, subscribe like crazy, eat too many of them. And that's a really good problem, because we're set up our infrastructure so that it can help. So cool, and for me, I haven't taken, if anything, I've put money in, but I've never taken $1 from Barukas yet. So we're just there to set, and that's the way me and one other partners decided to go. And I'm like, let's just get this thing out. I don't need to take anything from it. And let's prove this concept. And so once we get to a point, we're close, we're doing good. Then let's make it, start to come back. But at this point, all of us, every employee has taken less than what they're actually worth in the marketplace. Wow. So internally, no one really knows that. It's probably the first time I've ever said that. I've said that I don't take money from it at this point, but I've never really said that we're all we're all in it, for That's years. Amazing. Yeah. So there are years that these guys and these gals and these people have been committed to this stuff. So we want people to enjoy Barukas because it's good for them. It's not just a tagline. It's literally good for them, and it's good for the planet. So, best nut ever.
Yes, it truly is. It's amazing. We'll obviously link to that in the show notes, and all of your other, you have, as I mentioned, so many incredible endeavors. You also started 121 Tribe, which is a newer thing. You guys have a 21-day program that looks pretty amazing. Maybe I'll need to sign up for that and just give it a whirl. Get more Daren in my life.
Yeah, exactly. You just need a little more, don't you?
Just a little more. Okay, so I ask everyone on the podcast this, which is a big question, but why do you think that we're here on the planet? What is the purpose of it all?
I think it's a constant unfolding of our consciousness and the rediscovery of who and what we really are. It's consciousness expressing itself. It's me expressing myself through the fabric of consciousness, and it's designed to bump us up against the places where we're not conscious, so that we become more conscious. So if you want to run your life being unconscious and bumping up against pain, shame, and all of this other stuff, then you have that choice. Or you can turn into it and learn and grow and unfold like a flower and see who and what you really are, beyond money, beyond fame, beyond even your relationships. And yeah, I think it's just an unfolding of consciousness.
I love it. Ah, beautiful. Thank you, Daren. This has just been such a treat and such a beautiful way to spend an hour. And I know you're so busy, so thank you for taking this time to be with me.
Sarah, amazing questions, and I expected nothing less than that coming from the other half of Rory's family. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
Is there anyone else anywhere people can find you, or anything else you want to share with our audience that we didn't cover?
Yeah, DarinOlien.com. Sign up for my newsletter. We're putting out some kind of behind the scenes and special content through there. We're developing other apps that people can come onto as we go. But yeah, social media, Barukas.com, all of this stuff. You can find it all on my website too.
Great. And we'll link to it in the show
Awesome.
notes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Take care.
Cheers.
Bye.